When the emergency radio crackled to life just after 2 o'clock in the morning, employees across Walt Disney World knew something had gone terribly wrong. One of Disney's famous monorails, normally one of the safest ways to travel around the resort, had been involved in a collision. What should have been the end of a quiet workday suddenly became one of the most tragic accidents in Disney history. For millions of visitors every year, the Walt Disney World monorail is much more than transportation. It is one of the first rides families experience after arriving at the resort. As the sleek trains glide above roads, lakes, and crowds, many people feel like their vacation has officially begun. The monorail first opened at Walt Disney World in 1971, the same year the Magic Kingdom welcomed its first guests. At the time, it looked like something from the future. Instead of running on railroad tracks, it traveled on a single concrete beam high above the ground. Guests loved the smooth ride and incredible views. Over the years, the monorail carried hundreds of millions of passengers. Because it had such an excellent safety record, most guests never worried about stepping aboard. Many even believed it was one of the safest transportation systems in the world. But even very safe systems depend on people following careful procedures every single day. On July 5, 2009, the Magic Kingdom had already closed for the night. Most guests had gone back to their hotels, and the resort had become much quieter. While visitors slept, Disney employees were still working behind the scenes. Every night, monorails had to be moved from the guest routes to the maintenance facility where they would be cleaned, inspected, and prepared for another busy day. This happened after guests were no longer riding, making it easier to move the trains around the track system. That night, several monorails were being repositioned. One of them was Monorail Pink. Another was Monorail Purple. To move Monorail Pink into the maintenance area, employees instructed the operator to drive slightly past a track switch before backing the train onto another section of track. This reversing procedure had been performed many times before. It was considered a normal part of overnight operations. However, reversing a train is more complicated than driving forward. Unlike a car, the operator could not easily see everything behind the train. The movement depended on communication between several employees working together. They had to make sure every track switch was lined up correctly before giving permission for the train to reverse. If even one switch was set incorrectly, the train could end up on the wrong track. Unfortunately, that is exactly what happened. As Monorail Pink began backing up, one of the track switches had not been positioned correctly. Instead of moving safely toward the maintenance spur, the train reversed onto the same beam where Monorail Purple was waiting. The operators had only seconds to react. The two trains collided near the Transportation and Ticket Center's Epcot station at about 2 a.m. Passengers had already left Monorail Pink, leaving only its operator on board. Monorail Purple still carried 6 passengers in addition to its operator, Austin Wenenberg, a respected Disney cast member who had worked on the monorail system for years. Emergency crews arrived quickly. The passengers on Monorail Purple were able to leave safely and did not suffer serious physical injuries. The operator of Monorail Pink survived after receiving medical treatment. Tragically, Austin Wenenberg did not survive the collision. He was 21 years old. News of the accident spread across the country. Many people were shocked because Disney's monorail had long been known as one of the safest transportation systems at any theme park. People wanted to know one important question: how could two trains on the same track collide? To answer that question, investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board, known as the NTSB, carefully examined the trains, the tracks, radio communications, operating procedures, and interviews with employees. Their goal was not to blame one person, but to understand exactly what happened and prevent it from happening again. After months of investigation, officials concluded that several mistakes happened at the same time. The NTSB found that a track switch had not been properly aligned before Monorail Pink was instructed to reverse. They also found that the manager coordinating train movements did not verify the switch position before authorizing the reverse movement. Investigators said that Disney's operating procedures for backing trains were not detailed enough and allowed unsafe practices to develop over time. Safety experts often talk about something called the Swiss cheese model. Imagine stacking several slices of Swiss cheese together. Each slice has holes. One hole by itself usually isn't a problem because the next slice blocks it. But if the holes in every slice line up perfectly, something dangerous can pass straight through. That is similar to what happened that morning. It was not just one mistake. Several small problems lined up at exactly the wrong time. Following the investigation, Disney changed many of its monorail operating procedures. Employees received updated training, reversing procedures were strengthened, and additional verification steps were added before trains could move backward. Federal workplace safety officials also cited Disney for safety shortcomings related to the incident. Today, the Walt Disney World monorail continues to carry millions of guests each year. Most visitors have no idea that one of the system's biggest safety improvements came because of a tragedy that happened after the parks had closed for the night. The collision serves as a reminder that even the most trusted transportation systems require constant attention, teamwork, and clear communication. Every switch, every radio call, and every safety check matters. For many people, the Disney monorail still represents excitement, adventure, and the beginning of a magical vacation. But behind that familiar "please stand clear of the doors" announcement is a story that changed the system forever. A story that reminds us that the safest systems are the ones that never stop learning from the past. It was supposed to be just another exciting ride through the Wild West. Families climbed into the train, pulled down their lap bars, and waited for the familiar sound of the locomotive pulling away from the station. Just a few minutes later, that ordinary ride turned into one of the most serious accidents in Disneyland's history. What investigators discovered afterward would change how one of Disney's most famous roller coasters was inspected and maintained. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad has been one of Disneyland's most popular attractions since it opened in 1979. Located in Frontierland, the ride tells the story of an old mining town where mysterious forces have caused runaway mine trains to race through caves, canyons, and rocky mountains. Unlike giant roller coasters that flip riders upside down, Big Thunder Mountain is designed to be a family attraction. It has quick turns, small drops, and exciting scenery without being too intense. That made it a favorite for parents and children to enjoy together. Over the years, millions of guests rode the attraction safely. Many visitors thought of Big Thunder Mountain as a classic Disneyland experience. It had operated for decades and earned a reputation as one of the park's most reliable rides. Behind the scenes, however, keeping a roller coaster safe takes an enormous amount of work. Every morning before guests arrive, maintenance teams inspect the tracks, trains, brakes, wheels, and many other parts. Even a small mechanical problem can become dangerous if it is not found and repaired. That is why theme parks spend thousands of hours each year checking their attractions. On the evening of September 5, 2003, Disneyland was busy with families enjoying the final rides of the day. As guests walked through Frontierland, the sounds of steam whistles and rushing mine trains echoed across the area. One of those trains left the station carrying several riders. At first, everything seemed completely normal. The train climbed its first lift hill, sped through winding turns, and entered one of the attraction's dark tunnels. Riders laughed as they raced past glowing mining equipment and rocky walls. Then, without warning, something went terribly wrong. Inside one section of the ride, the locomotive, the front part of the train, separated from the passenger cars behind it. This caused the remaining cars to derail. Some struck the tunnel walls while others piled into one another. The sudden stop threw riders violently inside their seats. Official reports later confirmed that one guest lost his life and several others suffered injuries of varying severity. Within moments, the excitement inside the attraction was replaced by confusion. Ride operators immediately activated emergency procedures. The roller coaster stopped operating while employees rushed to help the passengers. Emergency medical teams arrived quickly, carefully reaching riders inside the enclosed tunnel before transporting injured guests for treatment. Disneyland closed Big Thunder Mountain Railroad immediately after the accident. News spread quickly across California and then around the world. People were surprised because Disneyland had built a reputation for paying close attention to safety. Many wondered how a ride that had operated successfully for more than 20 years could suddenly experience such a serious mechanical failure. Investigators from California's Division of Occupational Safety and Health, often called Cal/OSHA, began examining every part of the attraction. Their job was to answer several important questions. What caused the train to come apart? Could the accident have been prevented? Was there a problem with the design of the ride, or was something else responsible? To find the answers, investigators inspected damaged train parts, reviewed maintenance records, interviewed Disney employees, and studied how the trains were assembled. After months of work, investigators reached an important conclusion. They determined that the accident began because one of the locomotive's wheel assemblies had not been properly secured after maintenance. Fasteners that were supposed to hold important components together had loosened, allowing parts of the locomotive to move in ways they were never designed to. As the train continued around the track, the damage grew worse until the locomotive separated from the rest of the train, leading to the derailment. The investigation did not find that guests had done anything wrong. Instead, it showed how even a small mistake during maintenance can have very serious consequences. Roller coasters are made up of thousands of moving parts. Each bolt, pin, wheel, and bracket has a specific job. If just one important piece is not installed correctly, the effects can spread throughout the ride. Think about building a bicycle. If every part is assembled correctly except one loose wheel, the bicycle may seem fine at first. But as you keep riding, that loose part can create bigger and bigger problems until the bicycle no longer works safely. Investigators found that the same idea applied here. One maintenance problem eventually affected the entire train. Disney fully cooperated with investigators throughout the process. The company also began reviewing maintenance procedures across its attractions to make sure inspections were as thorough as possible. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad remained closed for months, while engineers carefully repaired the ride, replaced damaged equipment, and completed extensive testing. Before the attraction reopened, experts inspected the trains repeatedly. Additional maintenance procedures were introduced, inspection checklists were strengthened, and employees received updated training on assembling and verifying critical ride components. These changes were not limited to one roller coaster. The incident encouraged theme parks throughout the industry to look closely at their own maintenance practices. Many parks reviewed inspection schedules, documentation, and quality control procedures to reduce the chances of similar mechanical failures. Today, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad continues to operate at Disneyland. Most guests who board the ride have no idea that years ago it became the focus of one of the park's most important safety investigations. As the train races through waterfalls, caves, and towering red rock formations, everything feels effortless. But behind every trip is an enormous amount of work performed by engineers, mechanics, inspectors, and ride operators who carefully examine the attraction before guests ever climb aboard. The 2003 derailment remains one of Disneyland's most significant accidents because it showed that safety depends on more than good ride design. It also depends on careful maintenance, clear procedures, and people who never assume that good enough is enough. The tragedy led to meaningful improvements that continue to influence how attractions are inspected today. While nothing can undo what happened that September evening, the lessons learned helped strengthen safety practices for future guests. For millions of visitors, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is still an unforgettable adventure through the Old West. Its story also serves as a reminder that behind every magical experience is a team of people working every day to make sure the next ride is as safe as it can possibly be. It was a warm summer evening, and families were enjoying one last peaceful moment before bedtime. Children played near the water while parents relaxed on the beach outside Disney's Grand Floridian Resort. Then, in just a few seconds, an ordinary vacation changed forever. What happened that night led Disney to completely rethink how it warned guests about the wildlife that lives throughout Florida. For many people, a trip to Walt Disney World feels like stepping into another world. There are castles, fireworks, parades, and beautiful resorts filled with lakes, walking paths, and sandy beaches. It is easy to forget that the resort is located in Central Florida, Where nature is still very much a part of the landscape, Florida is home to more than 1 million alligators. They live in ponds, rivers, lakes, marshes, and canals across the state. In fact, it is common for alligators to be found almost anywhere there is fresh water. Because Walt Disney World covers more than 25,000 acres, it includes many natural lakes and waterways. Disney has long worked with wildlife experts to monitor these areas and remove alligators when necessary. Even so, wild animals can sometimes move into places where people least expect them. One of those waterways is the Seven Seas Lagoon. The lagoon sits beside the Magic Kingdom and several Disney resorts, including Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. During the day, guests can watch boats travel across the water or see the famous monorail glide overhead. In the evening, many families gather along the shoreline to relax and watch outdoor movies or fireworks from the Magic Kingdom. Although the beaches looked inviting, they were not swimming beaches. Guests were not allowed to swim in the lagoon because of natural hazards in the water. At the time, signs were posted telling guests that swimming was prohibited. On the evening of June 14, 2016, a family from Nebraska was enjoying their vacation at the Grand Floridian Resort. After dinner, they walked down to the beach to relax. Their 2-year-old son, Lane Graves, played near the edge of the water while his parents watched nearby. Like many young children, he enjoyed splashing in the shallow water along the shoreline. Then, without warning, an alligator emerged from the lagoon. The animal grabbed the child and pulled him into the water. His father immediately rushed into the lagoon and fought desperately to free his son. He struggled with the alligator, but was unable to overcome the powerful animal. Other guests and Disney employees quickly called for help as emergency responders raced to the scene. Within minutes, law enforcement officers, firefighters, wildlife experts, and rescue teams began an enormous search of the lagoon. Boats searched the water. Helicopters flew overhead. Divers entered the lagoon despite difficult nighttime conditions. Wildlife officers worked through the darkness, hoping to locate both the alligator and the missing child. The search continued through the night and into the following day. Sadly, the child was later found, and officials confirmed that he had died as a result of the attack. The medical examiner determined that the cause of death was drowning and traumatic injury sustained during the incident. News of the tragedy spread quickly around the world. Many people were heartbroken for the Graves family. Others wondered how something like this could happen at one of the world's most visited vacation destinations. Investigators began looking carefully at the circumstances surrounding the incident. They confirmed that swimming in the lagoon had already been prohibited. However, many people pointed out that while signs warned guests not to swim, they did not specifically mention the presence of alligators at that location. Florida wildlife officials also explained that alligator attacks on people are extremely rare. Most alligators naturally avoid humans. Problems usually happen when alligators lose their fear of people, are fed by humans, or when people unknowingly get too close to the water's edge. Still, investigators recognize that many visitors from other states or other countries may not fully understand that almost any natural freshwater lake in Florida can contain alligators. Disney responded immediately after the incident. The company temporarily closed beaches around the Seven Seas Lagoon and other nearby waterways. Soon afterward, construction crews began installing new safety features throughout the resort. Low fences and rock barriers were placed along many shorelines to make it much harder for guests, especially young children, to reach the water unexpectedly. New signs were also installed. Instead of only saying that swimming was prohibited, the updated signs clearly warned guests about the presence of alligators and snakes. Some signs included messages reminding adults to keep children away from the water's edge. Disney also increased its wildlife monitoring program. The company expanded patrols around resort lakes and continued working with wildlife professionals to remove nuisance alligators whenever necessary. Employees received additional guidance on responding to wildlife concerns reported by guests. The Graves family later chose to honor their son's memory in a remarkable way. Rather than focusing only on their own loss, they established the Lane Thomas Foundation. The organization supports families whose children need life-saving organ transplants and helps improve medical care for young patients. Through the foundation, Lane's memory continues to help children across the country. Today, millions of guests still visit Disney's lakeside resorts every year. The beaches remain beautiful places to relax, watch the fireworks, or enjoy the peaceful views across the water. But visitors will also notice the fences, warning signs, and other safety features that were added after the tragedy. These reminders serve an important purpose. They help guests remember that even inside a carefully designed vacation destination, nature cannot be completely controlled. The 2016 alligator attack was not caused by a ride malfunction or equipment failure. Instead, it highlighted the challenge of operating a resort surrounded by Florida's natural environment. The tragedy changed how Disney communicates wildlife risks to its guests. It also reminded people that warning signs need to be clear enough for visitors who may have little or no experience with Florida's unique wildlife. Today, Disney continues to work with wildlife experts to make its resorts as safe as possible while protecting the natural habitats that surround them. Although nothing can erase the heartbreak experienced by the Graves family, the changes that followed have helped make millions of future guests more aware of the environment around them. It is a lasting reminder that safety is not only about rides and attractions, it is also about understanding and respecting the natural world that exists just beyond the magic.